Hey everybody, it's Kyle, Executive Director of the PDS Foundation, and we are here today with one of my favorite people, Dr. Yasmin Easley from, I guess you're in Santa Clarita now, Dr. Easley?
I live there, but I work in Palmdale. Got a couple of offices up in Palmdale.
Fantastic. Dr. Easley has a special place in my heart. We've gone on a number of trips to Ethiopia together, and Dr. Easley was actually one of the founding board members of the PDS Foundation. So, Dr. Easley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure.
So, Dr. Easley, as we were talking before, as a native Kenyan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of just your story and your journey?
Okay, so my dad was a research scientist. He was an entomologist. So we're from Kenya originally, and he was out studying in Cambridge. He went to the University of Cambridge to get his doctorate, and so that's where I was born. And then we moved back to Kenya. I don't know, maybe a year old, I guess. And I was raised in Kenya. Went to basically British-based schools until 7th grade, I think, and then switched over to the American system. So I started going to an international school with American kids from 8th grade through senior year. And so we kind of switched tracks. And so it's always funny because people are like, well, when did you learn English? And I always spoke English, but the accent is because I was around Americans from a pretty young age. So going to an American school with my dad's background, it was pretty typical for kids to go overseas, to go to college and university. So I ended up going to Biola University in La Mirada, California. And originally my thought was to be a PE teacher. But my dad was like, I'm not spending all that money sending you to America to learn how to play games. And so the dream died. Very quickly, and so I ended up in pre-med because my first thought was to be an orthopedic surgeon.
Well, and you played basketball too, right? At Biola.
I played varsity basketball for 4 years. Blew out both knees. I don't know. Long story, different story. But I'm kind of a sports junkie, and so love sports. I mean, I can't think of a sport I won't watch if you can just tell me what the rules are. And then after that. I think my 4th year, I was like, I don't like school. And I literally was like, I'm not going to school for another 8 years. It was just not going to happen. So I literally sat down with a book and was like, okay, I have my major in biology. I have a minor in Bible. And I was like, okay, so what profession can I transition into that my dad will be cool with? So I literally go through like eye doctor, physical therapist, and I go through this list, I hit dentist, right? And I hated going to the dentist as a kid. Terrible experiences. But I had a really good friend whose dad was a dentist that was our dentist when I was in Kenya, actually. He actually lives out here in Temecula now. And he really kind of coached me back from the brink. He was gentle, he was great. So I was like, let me go shadow in his office for a few weeks, which I did. It was Dr. Myatt. And I was like, I can do this. I was like, this is okay. You know, you get to manage your own hours. You're not in the hospital all night. It's only 4 more years of school. So that was my epiphany. So I went into dental school, got into USC, which was like a 4-year hazing experience, I might add, but that's another topic. And I was one of 3 Black students at SC. And at that time, this was, man, ancient history, 1987, right? So there were not a lot of female students. There were no other Black female. All the other Black females in the school were in the hygiene program. And learned that some of my professors hated Black people. So that was really interesting. But anyway, got through SC, got a great education. It was difficult, but I got a good education. And then ended up working for a series of different practices, opened my own private practice off of Wilshire Boulevard. I actually bought into a practice. Was there for 8 years, was an abject failure, I might add. But I learned a lot. I learned a ton, but I would not recommend it. Not the way I did it. That was not a great idea. And so literally to take a break from my traumatic dental experience, I took a job at Dr. Gill's office out in Laverne. And I just thought it was a random private practice. I didn't know about PDS. I didn't care, quite honestly. And I just wanted a break. and I didn't want to own my practice. I sold it, and I worked for her for a year, and I had a great year. And through that, I learned about PDS and what it was all about. At that time, there were like 60 or 70 practices, I think, and ended up buying in Palmdale, and got one office up and running, and then a second. And you know, we had our ups and downs opening up Sierra Commons. I mean, it was a learning curve for me, and the rest is history. We're still here, thank goodness.
I am glad you're still here. Absolutely. So, I mean, what advice do you have for a young, you know, Black dentist that's going into dental school, or somebody that wants to become a dentist in a, you know, let's be honest, a pretty, you know, white industry? What advice do you have?
Well, the industry's, well, I guess it depends on what state you're in. In California, the industry is pretty diverse. I mean, we're at a tipping point with dentistry where there will be more female dentists in the profession. If it hasn't happened yet, I'd say within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
It'll be a female dominant profession. I think for African American dentists or for Black dentists, it's more about understanding that the opportunity is there. I think in many areas, you'd be amazed to this day how many patients will come in and say they've never had a Black dentist, and they're African American. You know, that's just, for them, it's still unusual. And a lot of patients will tell me that they're proud of what I do and whatever. And I don't necessarily always see it that way, but I understand that you can only become what you see. You know, that's just a reality, you know. And so I think it's just understanding that the opportunity is there. I think for those of us that are African American dentists is to be visible in your community, you know, just by doing your job and doing it well and doing it right. The kids that come in, they see you and they say, man, I can do that. I can do that too. I've had a couple of patients that have gone in that direction. That's been kind of cool. But listen, this is a great profession to be a minority in, because you don't have to deal with things like diversity programs and what do you call it? You know, things like this where you have to get the numbers right. And because with dentistry, it's a merit program, right? You serve your patient well, you get patients. You suck with your patients, you don't get patients. It's just, they don't care. They don't really care. I mean, I've had a couple of racist incidents over the years, but for the most part, most of my patients couldn't care less. Am I going to hurt them? Am I going to do good dentistry? And I think if you serve your patients well, in all honesty, the rest of it takes care of itself. And the profession is diverse right now. I think it's also understanding that you have a voice. One of the reasons I left Kenya permanently is because when I went back home and I talked to them about becoming a dentist there, I was told pretty clearly that as a female dentist, you would not have a voice. Because in Africa, things are different.
Yeah.
And I felt like in America, in the US, I would have a voice. And so you, as minority women, as women, period, you have a voice, but your voice is only as good as how well you serve your patients. I really believe that. If you don't take care of your patients, I don't think you have a right to have a voice. But I think the profession is inherently flexible enough to allow you to have that voice. So as a minority, I think dentistry is fantastic. There's not a lot of ceilings in this profession that you can't bust through, and that's a good thing.
You know, it's fascinating that you would say that. Now, I know we're kind of fast forwarding of where there weren't female dentists in Kenya, and I'll transition a little bit to Ethiopia. And, you know, when we were there, and clearly we saw that a lot of that, you know, still the male dominant,
right?
But also of how many female dental students we were able to work with as part of that. You know, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I was kind of astounded, quite honestly. The last time we went up and we were up at the school, I just expected to be all guys because that's my experience of Africa. But that was 25, 30 years ago. I left in 80, 81, 82. So it was encouraging. I thought it was fantastic. I think to see all those women with full confidence that this was something they could do and they could be good at was awesome. And I think that's the challenge, I think, is for, I think, all of us as women to embrace the fact that, you know, you have the tools, you have the mind, you have the opportunity, which is what this country gives you. to take hold of it and go forward. And we saw that in Ethiopia, that they're being given the opportunity and they're stepping into it full blown. And it's so interesting because you and I both know in Ethiopia, in other areas of life, you don't see that kind of diversity. You know, women are, it's tough to be a woman in Ethiopia.
Absolutely.
Opportunities are not as frequent, but man, in dentistry, those opportunities are definitely there. And it was fun to see that. It was fun to talk to those women, and man, they're proud. They're tough. They're a good group.
Yeah, it was really impressive, and it's fun to follow them too. I'm sure that you've got a number of friends on Facebook that still probably keep touch with you, and it's awesome to see so many the success of so many of the friends along the way and how well they're doing. Again, just switching gears, part of who you've been as a dentist too is always giving back and serving your community. What has inspired you to do that as well?
Oh, goodness. I mean, honestly, I'm a pretty faith-based person. I mean, that's kind of what I hope defines me the most. I think when you have a God that has served you, that's kind of who we are. I think as human beings, we gain more in service than we do in grabbing stuff. And it takes us a while to figure that out, because I know, listen, I got out of dental school. I was like, man, I want to buy me a nice car. I want to have a nice house. You're like, I've been broke for years. I want stuff, right? But that only goes so far. And I think given the opportunity to give back, to serve other people when you have so much, you can attest to this. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
It feeds you in a way that almost nothing else in life does. And I'm really fully convinced that we're most human when we serve other people.
Yeah.
And so dentistry, I think as a profession, I'm not a big believer in doing work for free. I'm just not. In terms of your profession, I think that doing work well and being paid for it is kind of how God has designed us. In the same token, though, when you're blessed in abundance with that, out of that abundance, there's an opportunity to give to people that don't have those opportunities. And when you have that, there's that extra fulfillment that you grow, you mature, you become more fully what God has designed you to be. Service is not always easy. It's not always fun. There are literally days we were in Ethiopia. I was literally like, oh my gosh, the line is not shorter. Like we would be working all day.
Where are these people
I'm like, where are they coming from? And you're kind of mentally like, I've served enough, right? But you know this, right? But at the same time, it's not. Listen, I don't have warm, fuzzy feelings the whole time I'm serving. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a saint, but I fully believe that in service, there's a part of us that gets built that nothing else will do. And it's part of our mandate as human beings to meet other people's needs as well as meeting our own. And so that kind of drives me, that's kind of what feeds me. And I really hope I don't lose not just the desire, but the opportunities to keep doing those types of things.
Dr. Easley, we hope you don't lose those opportunities. We always got things for you to do to serve. You know that. So
yeah, I got to watch that.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been great. Let's keep serving. Let's keep making a difference in the world around us. And I appreciate all of your time today.
Hey, no worries, Kyle. Thank you for what you do and for opening up those doors for us. And let's keep talking, keep reaching out, letting us know, and we'll step into those opportunities.
All right.